I can understand how fans feel. I mean, people bitching, they complaining, they pissed. They're like, man, this bullshit ass undercard. I wasn't buying the fight anyway. Well, you know, truth be told, it's like the CEO of Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellaby, said to Dan Rayfield, it's bigger than Dan Rayfield. You know, this shit is big, quote unquote. Pause. What he said. Tank Davis, 18-0, with 17 KOs, is going to be taking on Francisco Fonseca. He's never fought outside of Costa Rica, from what I'm seeing, maybe one fight. And he's ranked very high by the IBF. And what you can do is you can actually go and look up on YouTube and watch several fights of his. And basically, you can get a understanding of the type of fighter that he is. Now, he's not a small fighter as far as he's listed at, what is he listed at? How come they don't have his height? I think he's about 5'5" or some shit. Let me check. Let me check to be sure. Let me check to be sure. What did I see his height at? Because BoxRec doesn't have it listed. Anyway, he's a fighter that fights. You know, he's fighting at 130 for the Gervonta Davis's 130-pound title, but he can fight at 135. To describe his fighting style, he is a pressure fighter, and it's like this, right? We don't know who this guy is because if you look at his resume, you know, the best record of somebody that he's fought is what, 8-3. He's got a guy who's his last fight, for example, in March of this year, the end of March, was 17-8-3. You know, before that, a guy who was 6-16, 22-8, a guy who was 10-20, 16-6, 8-3, 31-27. 12-3, 9-20. So you get where I'm going. It's kind of like a pattern where he'll fight somebody with a positive record, then somebody negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, or somebody just with a fucked up record. So it's like this. You can look, of course, you can look good against all these low tier, you know, fighters. But from what I'm seeing, you know, it's the fight is promising to be, you know, an exciting fight, even if we don't know who the fuck this guy is. But hey, listen, that's boxing. Anything can happen. We're just finding out who Tank Davis is. Remember when Marcos McDonough came over here? You know, people didn't really know who he was all those years ago. You know, before he fought Victor Ortiz, before he fought, you know, Amir Khan and all those guys. People didn't really know who he was. You know, so could this guy be one of those guys? You know, if you look at Tank Davis's last, you know, few opponents, you know, Liam Walsh, he just was just too much for him. Jose Pedraza he was literally too much for him as far as power is concerned. But what if this guy has a chin? Let's talk about some real shit here. Mayweather Promotions is saying that Tank Davis is going to be the next pay-per-view star. How can you be a pay-per-view star if you don't speak up? Yeah, I had the chance to talk to him, you know, at the Bruno Garcia. He was there. You know, they had a press conference with Tank Davis before the fight where it was said by the vice president of Premier Boxing Champions, Tim Smith, that it was going to be Roman Rocky Martinez. So I thought to myself, at this point in time, this was on July 29th. Right now, it's what's today's date? The 11th, the 12th, or some shit. It's August the 12th. I said, if it's going to be Roman Rocky Martinez, let me go see if he's ranked by the IBF at 130 pounds. He wasn't. So I said, okay, let's see if he magically gets put into the rankings before this fight. The new IBF rankings came out like the 1st or the 2nd of this month. Voila, Roman Rocky Martinez is ranked number 15. So, which means to me that he was actually in the running to get the fight, but did he price himself out? Was it not enough time for training camp, or what was it? So now we get Francisco Fonseca after, you know, all this talk of, you know, him and Tevin Farmer, who, by the way, shot in the hand. Thank God he don't have to, you know, have any like major surgery, you know, because I guess it was just a flesh wound. You know, Lomachenko, which I know that his team is keeping him away from. Tank Davis is just not ready for Lomachenko right now. Even though he's a champion, I understand that. I'm not condoning it, but we know they're going to keep him away from him, you know? We already know that. You know, so he's in a situation where he has to start fighting, you know, credible competition after this. Because, you know, people are kind of getting fed up. They're like, okay, well, since you're not going to unify with Lomachenko, then are you going to go to 135? And, you know, like, what are you going to do? You know, so it's hard when you're a champion, you know, and people are pissed off at you because it's like when you're a champion, you're supposed to fight the best of the best, you know? But it's like he's a champion that's still being treated as not even a contender, really, a prospect, you know? He's being treated as a prospect. You know, so let me pull up something here real quick to go check out these rankings here to see what possible fights he could possibly fight next if he beats Francisco Fonseca. You know, I've watched and covered, you know, hundreds of fights on YouTube at this point in time in my YouTube career or media career, whatever you want to call it. And what I noticed is guys like Francisco Fonseca come along, and we may not know who they are right now, but all they need is one big win, you know, and voila, you know, these guys, you know, are, you know, a next, you know, champion, you know. So let's see who he could have fight in this short notice. Remember, the undercard was just announced on August the 10th, right? This fight was just announced between Gervonta Davis. Oh, and Francisco Fonseca is 19-0-1 with 13 KOs. Tank Davis is what, 18-0 with 17 KOs. You know, so here's the 130-pound division. Miguel Burchuk, who has been fighting on Golden Boy cards, is not yet known if he's a Golden Boy fighter or not. In fact, while I'm doing this, let me go look up the Golden Boy website to see if he's on their list of fighters. But he's the WBC champion, right? I would like to see him versus Tank Davis next. Could that happen? And remember, Al Heyman who also Al Heyman advises Tank Davis, even though he's under the Mayweather Promotions banner. You know, Al Heyman manages and advises him. You know, so Al Heyman and Golden Boy work together, but can Mayweather and De La Hoya work together, you know, to get Tank Davis versus Miguel Burchuk done? I don't think so. You know, even with the WBA champion, Jezreel Corrales, even though he didn't look good in his last fight to me, you know, he's also now a somewhat newly signed Golden Boy fighter. He signed with them a few months ago, and he's the WBA champion. So those are two champions that are pretty much out of the mix via politics. Nope, Miguel Burchuk is not listed as a Golden Boy fighter. I mean, could they get him, or does he, you know, or did Miguel Burchuk get like signed up by HBO and we may not have heard about it, or is HBO investing in him? So then you have Gervonta Davis, who's the IBF champion, and you have Vasil Lomachenko, who's the WBO. You know, so he's in a tough situation. If you look at the IBF rankings, you know, from 1 to 15, obviously, you know, these are the new IBF rankings. Rocky Martinez is ranked number 15. And then looking at the names that you know, or you can say, okay, all right, that's a known name. My understanding, number 3, Billy Dibb is hurt. You know, number 5 is Tevin Farmer. You know, and these are names that you know. Number 8 is Javier Fortuna, but didn't he just fight recently? Let me go look at Javier Fortuna. I would have liked to seen that. Orlando Salido was number 9, and the word is, even though not yet confirmed, is that he priced himself out of the Gervonta Davis fight, as well as has been confirmed that he priced himself out of the Vasil Lomachenko fight. And then you got number 10, Masayuki Ito. You know, we don't know who he is, but he's probably good. I'm not going to count these fighters out because I haven't seen them. You know, and any other names on there we really don't know, or, you know, would have got the same amount of heat as Francisco Fonseca. And maybe they get word from the IBF that Francisco Fonseca could be a future mandatory. Maybe, we don't know. So, you know, am I condoning the fight? It's like this. I understand the politics and the business of the sport. You know, so I know that with this short notice, you know, this is the guy they had to come up with. So I'm not giving Tank Davis no heat. But at the same time, he can't bring up Lomachenko, you know, and when his team talks about Lomachenko, they got to talk about him in like a semi-positive light. I'm not saying, you know, kiss his ass, suck his dick, you know, but what I'm saying is that, you know, they got to be careful and tread lightly when they come to Vasil Lomachenko's name, because they're not going to fight him. And even if Tank Davis would want to fight him, his team is not going to put him near him, you know. And I can't see Bob Arum and, once again, Mayweather, you know, putting on an event. You know, would Tank Davis have to go over to ESPN? So I see Tank Davis moving to 135 before he fights Lomachenko, or just holding out until Lomachenko moves up to 135 because nobody won't fight him. You know? So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, where Tank Davis goes from here. But anyway, I'm Teacher Controversy. This is Teacher Controversy Live. This is the co-feature for Mayweather versus McGregor, the money grab. You know, August the 26th, 2017. Also on the card, on the pay-per-view card, right? Mayweather versus McGregor, Tank Davis versus Francisco Fonseca, Nathan Cleverly, WBA 175-pound champion versus Badou Jack, Steve Cunningham versus Andrew Tabiti. You have on the Fox card, which is a free card, headlined by Shawn Porter versus Tomas Dulorme. And who else? Is it Miguel Heraldez? I forgot to pronounce his name. Something like that. I'm butchering his name. Juan Heraldez. I'm butchering his name. You know, but, you know, it's like this, right? I've seen worse Mayweather undercards. You know? I mean, and if you listen. Y'all, listen. Don't get me started, all right? I'm Teacher Controversy. This is Teacher Controversy Live. Please subscribe.